So I returned home from Paris last night, and this brought to an end a 5-day journey there. I went over on Thursday last week, stayed over through to the Monday morning, and the reason I did this was because Paris is the home of my Archdiocese. The cathedral is there, my Metropolitan Archbishop resides there, and it is where we come together as a diocese on a fairly regular basis to talk about things of importance to us. Now, this weekend stands out, and I want to tell you about it because of the momentous occasion it represented. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, we had the privilege of electing a new bishop for the diocese. This new bishop will not take over from our metropolitan. God willing, our metropolitan will be with us for many years to come. But he is an auxiliary bishop. And it's just a joy for me personally, and I think really for many in the Archdiocese, to know that in a new bishop, we have a figure that represents the future. This is really important to me. And I think it should be important to you too. And the reason is because the Archdiocese of Orthodox churches of Russian tradition in Western Europe has been around for about 100 years. And in 2019, it returned to its mother, you might say, in the sense that it emerged originally from the church in Moscow and, of course, was separated from that church as a result of events following the revolution. Now, for many, many years, the Archdiocese was under the omophorion, that is, the blessing or protection of the Patriarch of Constantinople. But in 2019, it was decided that it was time we returned to our natural home. And ever since then, of course, there have been things that have arisen and got in the way of our development, but I have experienced it as a place of joy, a place of mission, a place driven by a desire to serve the people of Western Europe. And this has affected me very deeply. I've always been somebody somewhat mission-minded in the sense that my own experience of the faith across the years was one of joy. It was one of simply knowing God's presence. And it is something, consequently, I simply wanted to share with others. And the diocese represents all of that and more. So to go over, as I did this past weekend, to stay there, to be at the cathedral, to be with my brother priests and deacons and all of the lay members of the synod was sheer delight. Of course, it was also serious business. And the serious business involved taking on the responsibility of discerning, voting for, and declaring worthy a particular candidate for the episcopate. That is somebody who was discerned and decided should be ordained bishop. Now, I'm going to carry on with this, but I want to tell you first what it's like to go there. When I go over to Paris, there are various modes of transport I might take. Last time I was there, I drove. The time before that, I think I flew. The time before that, it was by train. This time, I flew once again. And so it's always a slightly, what would I say? It's always a slightly draining experience in the sense that I don't mind driving, but going to the airport in Bristol from Cardiff, getting on the plane, landing, then having to get in from the airport to the center of the city, which is where our cathedral essentially is, can often be quite arduous. It's tiring, but it is oh so worth it. Now, I say that because I want you to imagine for a moment what it's like to arrive at Charles de Gaulle Airport, where I arrived this time, and then to get into an Uber and make your way from what is essentially the outskirts of the city into the 8e arrondissement. That is the 8th quadrant, perhaps. This is where the cathedral is. It's very close to the base of the Champs-Élysées and close to the Arc de Triomphe. And it's a cathedral of cultural significance, not only because it's mine, not only because it is the mother church of an archdiocese I love, but because of the notice it attracted in its early history, because of how it has served the Russian diaspora in the wake of the revolution of the early 20th century, because of the way it made its way into the minds and hearts of artists, of intellectuals, of poets, of musicians, really across the last 100 years. It's all very exciting, and you need only look it up online to see the kind of figures that have passed through its doors. That said, it is a thing of beauty. It is a place of beauty. It is an icon. It stands there as a testament to not only a recent history, that is the history of the Russian diaspora, but of the faith across 2,000 years. It is splendid with its, what I will describe as spires topped with golden domes. And when you go inside, there is a sense of being embraced. The iconography is not the same kind of iconography you would see, say, in a Greek church, but is very much representative of a Russian moment in the 19th century. It's all gold, and you feel warm. That is a testament, I think, to the spirit that runs through the place. When I was received on the altar into the Orthodox Church by Metropolitan Jean 5 years ago, I knew as I stood there that I was standing in a place where saints had stood. And if not saints, then great figures who had contributed so much to our knowledge, our understanding of the Orthodox faith. Figures such as Father Alexander Schmemann, John Meyendorff, Vladimir Lovsky, Florensky, Florovsky, Bulgakov, all of these figures, I know not all of them were members of the Archdiocese, but they were all part of a similar scene. And that was exciting to me because it was a scene that had great effect on my early development as an Orthodox Christian. That said, what I think is worth focusing on, though, despite the physical sense you get from being there, is the people. And that could sound almost trite because you expect me to say so. I'm an Orthodox priest and I'm sort of giving everybody a patronizing sort of stroke on the head, but that isn't the case. When you meet with brothers and sisters, because our Archdiocese includes the input of the laity from Germany, from, of course, France, from Great Britain, from Norway, from Italy, from the Benelux countries, it's an incredible experience. You realize just how universal the jurisdiction to which you belong actually is. Now, of course, the faith is universal. The Orthodox faith belongs to the whole world and is there to testify to the gospel in every language among all peoples. But to be in an archdiocese that literally includes so many of these people is just, well, there aren't any words for it. That's the background against which we elected our new bishop. Father Augustine is a priest from Glasgow. He is also a monk. And some time ago, he was raised to the status of hegumen, which is like an abbot, a local abbot. But after a process that included our diocese proposing 3 candidates, and then those 3 candidates being vetted and interviewed and sort of examined, it was determined that Father Augustine was a particularly appropriate figure for election. So his name came back to the whole synod, and it was our responsibility then to elect him. There was some nervousness the night before because we didn't know if we would have quorum. There was a storm that hit Western Europe from the Atlantic, and it was uncertain, as I say, whether or not we would have enough people there to actually go forward with the election. On the day, I was overjoyed to look around and see a packed cathedral. Not only did we meet quorum, we far exceeded it. And then it went to the first vote. And had Father Augustine not garnered 2/3 majority in favor of his election to the episcopate, to becoming a bishop, we would have had to then go to a second vote. But there was no need. When I heard the results come in, I was overjoyed. And what is wonderful about that is that so was everyone else. Ultimately, it was 117 votes in favor, 5 votes against. And this just attested to the fact that people were thinking along lines that would see us as an archdiocese carry on our mission, proliferate the ethos that has characterized our particular Orthodox family for 100 years, and give us the freedom to carry on. So it's been a joyful few days, and I think it's worth anybody watching this, anyone listening to this at this time, getting to know the Archdiocese of Orthodox churches of Russian tradition in Western Europe, because it represents a mission that is so necessary. The Incarnation, God's Word made flesh, met us where we were. And that meant, you might say, getting down in the trenches with the people. The Archdiocese has a common understanding of evangelism. And what that means is we understand that we carry on our shoulders the good news, the gospel, meeting people where they are at. So we're unquestionably of Russian tradition, but we are of Russian tradition in the languages of the peoples where they are. Here in Cardiff, we use primarily English. We include as much Welsh as we can. There are a number of Welsh speakers in my parish. If the church is found in England, the language will be English. If the church is found in France, French, Norway, Norwegian, etc. Why is that important? Because that's at least one side of what Orthodoxy needs to be doing. I have nothing at all against Orthodox churches that do not use the language of the local people, because each one of our communities, each one of our jurisdictions, each one of our dioceses will have a particular focus as we go about our work. But it is, I think, essential that wherever that is, there's at least one community that opens its doors to all people and invites them in even while we go out. And it's not just a matter of language. It's a matter of disposition. It's a matter of humility, really. It's a matter of being willing for us to roll up our sleeves and be generous to those who might approach us as we represent the church, as we represent Christ. So I hope that gives you some sense of the Archdiocese and what it is we're all about. I hope equally it gives you some sense for how important this past weekend has been to me personally, but to us as a jurisdiction, to us as a whole Archdiocese. And I would then extend it to you. If you have any interest in what I've just said, please come. Visit your local Orthodox church. If it's one that belongs to our Archdiocese, so much the better. But it doesn't matter. Just go. You're very welcome. Furthermore, I'll add, if you like this content and you can see tuning in more often, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. And if you're even further inclined, consider supporting me on Patreon. It's patreon.com/priestjacob. By doing that, you're not only supporting me personally, you're supporting the work of the parish church of St. Theodore and St. Tylo here in Cardiff, and ultimately you're supporting the whole Archdiocese of Orthodox churches of Russian tradition in Western Europe. Regardless, I hope to see you again next time, and I wish you the Lord's blessing.